contested and disputed, in the sense that much part of what was earlier a part of princely state of Jammu and Kashmir is on the side of Pakistan. It is like we say, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, POK. So the entire region is one, but a substantial part is on the other side of the territory. And therefore, this become a contentious issue, and also the border becomes volatile. They become more masculine, I would say, and militarized as well, because of the ongoing conflict. Now, my presentation is basically dealing with the impact of conflict on people living in the borderlands, just very adjacent to the line of control in district Jammu. Of course, it runs through Rajouri, Poonch, and right till Kashmir areas, but my focus will be on Jammu district in a place called Akhnur, which is a part of the district, because I have visited that area many times, and several villages, and I have more experience of working there. So I would say the impact of conflicts during war and warlike situations on women is very crucial, severe, and different. And we can see that during such times, their houses, their buildings, the agriculture fields, livestock, property are destroyed, and many times they have to migrate or evacuate their homes and places and go to the interior area. Now, these migration are very unexpected, sudden, and the people, and particularly women, are in an acute state of unpreparedness. And also, it is very recurrent kind of migration, because it's not once or twice, it's several times. Sometimes it's just for a few hours and they could come back, or they could go inside the bunkers which have been now created, or sometimes it is for a very long time, say about 5 years, 6 years, as happened in the Kargil War of 1999. So people stayed in camps, several camps were constructed, and they stayed for about, say, like 2099 to 2005 and 6. So as long as that, so one can understand the kind of problems that they have faced. And here I'm going to specifically talk about how does conflict impact women, and what do they say about these things. So it is not the question of only migration or dissertation, or but even of during normal times, which are called peace times. The situation is of anxiety, of uncertainty, of insecurity. I am just trying to emphasize that there is something called war, and there is something called war-like situation. What are considered to be peace times and normal times for everywhere, for everyone in the country, they are also the times full of anxiety and uncertainty and insecurity for the people who live at the border, because you don't know when the shelling would start, when the firing would take place, when they have to run for their life inside to the interior places. So I think it's in that context, one has to see in the context of a very specific location territory now, of its history, of its location, its geography, which we can't change, its background, like in the sense that it is, we say that Article 370, Article 35 ALE, which was there, of course, which is not there now, in a way abrogated in 2019, but the repercussions are still very much there. So because there are several communities, like we talk of women, but there are communities like West Pakistan refugees, who, and many of them were staying in the villages at the borders. So there is so much of uncertainty. When I was talking to some people, about 2 years back, before 2019, some of them had got their permanent resident made, which certificate made. You cannot make a permanent resident certificate unless and until you are a resident, a permanent resident of the state. So like even I cannot, because I come from outside. And even so, West people who came on partition to this side of the border in Jammu and Kashmir also did not have that provision. But some people got it, there's some people got the government job. Now when the government announced that 5 lakh rupees will be given to them as compensation, many of them said, the father said, I don't have this certificate. The son said, I have, because I have taken a job. So I think it was creating a whole lot of confusion. There was a whole lot of confusion regarding land and property, because I would say because of this uncontested, people say you have to accept the reality that it's still uncontested, and that's why we say that side, that part on the other side is ours, or whatever it is a big region that is a part of India. Now those people who went to the other side of the fence, other side of the LOC, they left their property here, but it is still in their names. It's called evacuate property, meaning now they're resident of Pakistan, if you say, or POK rather, but they have their property here, and so it cannot be allotted to the person of this side, of Jammu and Kashmir, because the owner is somebody else. So you have only use rights. So these are, I mean, there are many such problems. I mean, it is difficult to explain in all this, but I'm just trying to say that it's a very peculiar and very specific and unique situation, and some context has to be understood to really, analyze the situation. Now, I would say the views of women do not find mention in many studies on conflict, though the atrocities perpetrated on them become markers of the violence that is used by the state and the people to blame the other. Women's perceptions and subjectivity are subsumed under meta narratives of violence, conflict, and war. So therefore, this presentation is an attempt to bring out the lived experiences of women during war and warlike situations through their narratives and focus on their agency. What women think about it, what are their views, what are their narratives, what are the perception, and how do they handle the patriarchal structure, the state structure, the history, the meta narrative, etc. And what is their relevance, and also the questioning of the what is called victimhood paradigm, in the sense that women are always seen as the sufferers, the passive agents, etc. But I'm just trying to show that they are active participant in the sense that how they have dealt with the situation of partition, different wars, and also the processes like migration, shelling, etc., which is still continuing. So I would say the northwest border, which is now LOC, has witnessed a long drawn out conflict between India and Pakistan, particularly over Kashmir. And we all know that very little brief background that the state acceded to the Indian Union on 27th October 1947, when India signed Instrument of Accession. So it became a part of it. But in the meanwhile, it was attacked just before around 22nd October by raiders from the Pakistan side, and there was a whole lot of violence at that place. And much of the area, I would say, maybe around 30-35% or something like that went to Pakistan side, and they occupied it. And then, of course, India took it to the United Nations. 1st January 1949, the ceasefire was declared. Some portion of it is given to China also. So the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, the princely state, one of the largest state, I would say in area wise it must be the largest out of 565 princely state, has now reduced it. The area is reduced to only Jammu and Kashmir, and of course Ladakh was a part of it. But even that is now so much contested, and everybody is like eyeing Kashmir for that matter. So much part is already left. So that's why some Pakistanis say that they want Kashmir. Indians, they said that no, the other side is actually us, our part of the country. So the whole lot of politics and rhetorics and narratives, meta narratives are there. So I think in this whole scenario, how do we understand the situation of the people, particularly, especially of the women? So I think each war has resulted into, traumatic experience for people, especially for women. And during, even in the recent times, there have been frequent checks and patrolling by army, digging of bunkers, fencing, mining, construction of ditches, roads, installation of lights, etc. So presence of troops all around the fields and houses, which creates, of course, unnecessary problems and delays with the people. And I would just say that, when the Kargil war happened in 99, around 2003 and 4, there was a ceasefire. Then I would just say that, I was saying that it was a ceasefire line in 1949, 1st January, which was converted into line of control and LOC in 1972 at the Shimla, agreement, which was signed after 1971 war. So this LOC is a, as I said, it's not an international border, and that's why it was porous. So people, and of course, it gave way to people coming from this side and that side. But when the problem started, especially after Kargil War, 2003 and 4, when Vajpayee was the prime minister, it was decided to fence the borders. And I think the barbed wire were constructed, roads were constructed, ditch cum bund were constructed. The army posts were there. I mean, which was the porous border actually became very firm and fixed, and actually maybe a little more well protected than it was. So this started happening. Now, what happened was that much of the area, much of the land, because these were villages in the borderland, came within that zero line, and the fencing that they had made, meaning that much of the land of the people, the fertile land, the fields, and it's a area which is famous for basmati rice. I mean, you might have heard, this is a rice bowl, and it's very fertile area, and you get very good quality of rice here. So much of the area became, was boxed, it came in between. Now, when the fencing was done, the gates were made, and the local people whose land, suppose if you have land across that fence, how will you go to do your agriculture? How would you look after them? So passes were given to them, timings were fixed. And I'm talking to a whole lot of people, especially women in particular. They said that, they say, you go from 9 to 12, or go from 4 to 6 in the evening. I mean, how can a person do agriculture during fixed times like this? And sometimes, and many times people told me that their crops are destroyed, the animals eat their crops, and they suffer a lot because of that. So I think the land ownership and agriculture, irrigation, all that is a huge problem for the people, because of the kind of conflict that's there. I will just come quickly to the women's point of view in this, and talking about, first of all, partition of India, 1947-48. It was, as I said, that it was not August 1947, but it was October 1947. And it was a session took place, Jammu and Kashmir became part of Indian Union. After that, continuously there have been wars, 47-48, all these 2 years there were wars, and there were many people who faced several kinds of problem. Some people like Urvashi Butalia, who's written on women's voices from Kashmir or the other side of silence, or Ritu Menon and Kamala Basin, women in India's partition, they have tried to give voice to women's narratives. They have women's point of view, that how do you understand history as differently from the meta narrative and something which is created by the state. When people say that we should attack, we should go inside and shell do attack the neighboring country, or just say, like we should take revenge, kind of a thing. I think every time you use these words, these rhetoric all over the nation, there's a fear among people who live at the borders. Some people were telling me that we don't even want part of that other side. Please protect this side only. Please let us live in peace, because every time there is war, or even there is a shelling, we have to run inside. I have recorded an account of people, a woman who told me that I was just asking her, she didn't remember everything properly, but I said, okay, next time, when what happened next time. So about 20, I think 22 times, 22, 25 maybe, she said that we have been in and out. So it is not 1947 or 48 war, or 65 or 71 or Kargil war, not 4 times, but it has been 25 times that her family have been in and out, from the border to the interior back again. It's an absolutely recurrent kind of migration or displacement, and one can really understand the pains of the people. So when we talk big, when we talk what is called like we say, oh, this is a narrative, this is constructed, we have to see what are the views of the people living at the border. I think if we actually hear to their voices, perhaps we'll be more careful and more sensitive to the issues that people face here. So I think it is important to avoid generalizing the experiences of suffering and give voices to various perspectives of those who are actually paying the price and really suffering. And women's narratives add, I think, a new dimension to the hitherto layer of someone else's describing their experience, something more than what is usually considered to be the only and authentic version. So we create a version, we create a narrative, and we say that this is the most authentic one without actually trying to understand how people who suffer in their everyday lives view this. I would just, take, one or two examples, as Sandeep was telling me that this is, a kind of, one has to talk about the narratives, and I have talked to a whole lot of people. I think it's difficult to really document everything that you have done, but I will just give a few of them. For instance, I will just quote, and because I have written somewhere that Rampaya, I mean, there's an area called Palamwala, which is in Akhnur sector, and very close, about less than 5 kilometers. When I visited there, I saw there were holes in the, walls. I said, I wish I could show some pictures, but at the moment, I didn't plan it like that, but maybe some other time. So Rampyari, a widow and a resident of Palamwala village, which is there in Akhnur sector, in her late 70s, is a courageous woman. She was married in 1946 at the age of 15. She describes her experience of 1947 partition as it was a time of great turmoil. We had to flee away. All of a sudden, I was newly married. We went to Jonia and then to Jandial across Akhnur bridge. The Pakistan army actually reached to this bridge, and how it was saved it's also a history. So we stayed there for 20 days. It was a very difficult time with nothing much to eat. After this, we went to another place called Jodia Chak. We heard there that some Muslims have come and they will finish us. Hari Singh, the Maharaja, sent truck full of rifles and distributed them to us for our protection. She further talks about her days during the time of partition and the relation between the Hindus and the Muslims. Many such accounts suggest that the local people tried to help each other irrespective of their religious affiliation. But when the situation worsened, they advised them to leave. According to Rampiari, there were several Muslims in our locality, Bhatti, Teli, Luhar, Rahadi. We gave shelter to Mannu Luhar, she was telling about somebody, and his wife, and kept them in our houses for 10 days and then sent them across the border to Pakistan safely. The relation between the Hindus and the Muslim in Palawala were very good. Similar is the case at my village, Kalakot, from where her parental house is. My father was a Lambadar, and I was like a daughter to everyone, irrespective of caste and religion. Here is an idea of the intercommunity relations just prior to 1947, and how they actually deteriorated so much that Hindus and Muslims actually became almost the enemies. And we know that partition is the worst kind of tragedy that is faced, I think, all over the world, particularly South Asia. Regarding the 1965 war, and I would just say that a lot of people from what is now called Pakistan, India actually calls Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Pakistan says it's Azad Kashmir, and they try to include with their administrative, territory. A lot of Hindus and Sikhs came from places like Muzaffarabad, and actually Muzaffarabad. Krishna Mehta. I mean, she wrote about it. Her husband was killed during that time, and how people have to, migrate from places like Muzaffarabad, Mirpur, Bagh, Rawalkot, which is a part of Punch. Punch is divided into Indian side and Pakistan side, Bhimber, Kotli, Jhanjhar, etc. And people, when the area went to Pakistan side, people came to this side, Hindus and Sikh. I mean, it was just the other way around. Muslims had gone that side. In 1965 war, 1 lakh Hindus and Sikhs were forced to flee from Chamjodia area in southwest Jammu when the Pakistan army overran. There's a place in Akhnur sector which is called Chamjodia. In 65, it was occupied. Jodia is in India. Cham is in has gone to Pakistan side. 1965, it was done. It was given back again in 1971. It went to that side. So I'm just trying to say that it is not only 47 and 48, but even 1965, 1971, the territorial dispute was continuing. The LOC was shifting from here and there. I mean, we know we got independence in 1947, but as long as till 1971, till the Shimla Agreement and the status quo was maintained, the ceasefire line was converted into line of control. Till then, the boundaries were kind of shifting. And India gave some part to Pakistan, Pakistan gave some part to India. And of course, a lot of people say that 71 war we could have easily bargained for several things, but we returned territories, we returned our prisoners of war, etc. Anyway, that's just another question. But as far as this region where I did my field work, I realized that a substantial area, a very rich, fertile area, agriculture area had gone to, the area called Cham. People still say Cham, but it's just across the LOC. And the people who were, since that area went, so Hindus and Sikhs again, then whichever area went to Pakistan, where Hindus and Sikh came here, and whichever area came here, the Muslims went to that side. So it kept on happening like that. And you can understand when the situation is not decided, it's not decided till today. It is still contested. We have our seats there. I think this is one of the most prolonged kind of conflict that is actually affecting a people a lot. So, Vidya Devi is another woman belonging to the same village, Palamala. She moved from this village and another village called Gigrial. The land was allotted to her in 1965. She was 35 years of age, but as the war broke out, the family had to leave the village. So she says that we heard the firing and knew what was coming. We immediately rushed in whatever clothes we were in. We walked and walked till Akhnur. It was very difficult. Then we put up in Muttal, there's a kind of place, and stayed there for 2 years. There was always a problem of food and shelter. The children were small. How long we could depend on others? This is her. She is lamenting. This has happened during 1965 war. I'm just giving one incident. I have collected many kind of documented stories, you can say, and people did tell me to tell the stories here today. So just a kind of an example, because there are many and I have to just select a few. And there's a lady in 1971 war, her name is Santoshi. She says, this is 71 war. Remember when Bangladesh became free and, India won the war. So she says, my husband was in army and he was in Bangladesh then. I remember it was 3rd of December when we heard the gunshots, and with my in-laws and other relatives, we quickly left in whatever state we were in. With great difficulty, we reached Mishriwala, where tents were put up for the migrant. There were innumerable problems. There was no light, the water was dirty, medical care was negligible, and there was no toilet facility. Though we used to go to open fields, but even this place was not available to us. My first child, a daughter, was born there on 31st December 1971. What a tough time we had. I shrugged thinking of those days. So during her migration process, she delivered a child, daughter at that time. So Rampaya then again is an older woman. She also talks about her, being there, and according to, yeah, like Rampyari, she says that we then moved to a camp in Mishriwala and stayed there for a year. This is 1971 war. We did receive a small amount of money, which was not enough even for our survival. People there used to make fun of us and sometimes accuse us. They said, you drink our water, you are not ashamed, you have enough land, and the land that was fertile. Why do you come and trouble us? Being a woman, I had to see the arrangement of food for children, the health, my older in-laws. My husband could not see with one eye, and since our livelihood depended on agriculture, here there was no work, no earning. He also fell ill and things became even more difficult. There was no time to think of my own health. Rampyari's words reflect the pain and the trauma for being a woman and also her capacity to move ahead in adverse circumstances. Her problems, like those of many others, were also aggravated by the attitude of local people. This shows that sudden and forced migration brought problems to those who migrate as well as to those who stay, in the cities. So, according to Vidya Devi, during the 65 war, when we were at Muthal, a hilly place where all the migrants were put up, my husband died. My youngest daughter was then 7 months old. There were three other daughters. I had to nurse my husband as he was quite unwell. My daughter used to cry. I could not even feed her properly. During that phase, we had